Okay. Good afternoon, boys and girls. Welcome to another lesson with me, Coach Matt. Thank you for being on time today, guys. Much appreciated. Always nice to see you guys on time and ready to go. Fantastic. All right. So I'm also quite happy to see that everyone's in the lead shares. Hopefully we can test the lead shares chat room in just a moment. I feel like everything should be in working order there. If there are any issues, please feel free to mention them to me. Guys, I hope you guys have been doing the chess program that we sent out for you guys. If you don't have it, if you are not getting it, please notify Mr. Campos so that he can just make sure that you guys are getting that information, because there is a chess program that's being sent out on a weekly basis with positions and activities and things that we want you to be doing that will help you to master your skills and to improve your chess. So that is happening, and if you are not getting that information, then it's not very useful. So please make sure that you check that out. All right, let's get into today's lesson. We've got some interesting checkmate exercises ahead of us. We're going to also deal with the famous Legal's Mate. That's quite an interesting, famous position that we will discuss. And then we've got a little bit of an end game, one that's definitely needs to be locked into the brain. So let's get right into it. We got a nice position here, white to play and win. I'm going to keep the clues to a minimum here. We either win a lot of material or we checkmate the opponent. White to play. Let's see what we can come up with. Guys, as usual, please participate. Don't just sit there and look pretty. We need you guys to get involved. Okay, so obviously we have to do something about this problem, because if it was black to play, black's going to play queen takes d4 check. We're going to drop a piece. We're going to have to trade off the queens. Excuse me. Knight will take back. And that's just looking... So definitely need to make sure that that doesn't happen. Whatever happens, that must not happen. So look at all possible checks, all possible takes. Very, very important place to start. I know I'm always going on about that, but it is just so important. Knight e6. Ooh. Interesting one. Thank you, Gabriel. Just remember, when both knights can go to the same square, like in this case with knight e6, you need to specify which knight we're talking about. Is it knight G to e6, or is it knight D to e6? So just remember that it only occurs with the knights and with the rooks when both pieces are able to move to the same square. We need to say which one it is. We need to specify which piece we're moving. If I know Gabriel, I was just going to try and guess here. The G knight. Hey, you're not interested in moving the D knight? Maybe. It feels like I'm bringing more pieces into the king. Definitely need to be aware of this little move, which is a little bit scary. Just a tad. Just a tad. I'm not sure where I'm going with this. I'm not really targeting anything. Even this, there is bishop e6, which is definitely a bit off-putting, if I can put it like that. Not too excited about that. What else we got, guys? It looks like there's a check here. It looks like there's a check here. These are both interesting moves. The only problem is, I don't know if we're going to get anything solid out of that. I'm going to check there. Check there. Perhaps. Guys, I haven't seen too much else in the chat. No, I thought maybe I was missing stuff. Come on, get involved. Throw your hat into the ring. Let's see what you got. Doesn't matter if you get it wrong. Like we've said before, please participate. If you get it wrong, so what? You're going to learn something. That's the worst thing that can happen. So like we said, don't just sit there and look pretty. Seems like those brains haven't quite warmed up just yet. I wonder how I should. All right. So I want to first look at Queen B3 or Queen C4. Let's see where this can take us. So let's look at it. So one thing I wasn't entirely sure of is I was like, okay, the king's going to go Bishop E6 just seems like a non-starter. It doesn't seem like a good idea. I'm just going to take that happily. I get my queen out of the pin, which it was in, which it was pretty uncomfortable. So King H8. Knight F7 looks like an obvious move. The problem that I did have here is I couldn't find any constructive squares for this knight to go. Remember, we've seen a couple of these of late. That's a discovered check. So wherever I move this knight, it's going to be check with the queen. So I'm looking for sort of opportunities to do some damage, possibilities of double check, also looking at that. Not really a possibility in this position. Yeah, so now, I mean, I do have knight e5. It's a bit risky because maybe now they can play bishop e6. They lose the bishop, but then maybe they end up winning the knight. It's all interesting. Otherwise, if king h8, then it just looks like I'm going to have to do this again. White doesn't really want to trade off pieces. Quite simply because he's behind on material. He's got 4 pieces against the 3 pieces and a rook. So it's basically rook against knight or rook against bishop. A bit of a tough time there. Yeah, so, I mean, it's a nice try. Probably just have to settle for this perpetual check. Remember, perpetual meaning never ending or non-stop. And it's just going to be check, which means we're going to get a draw here. The correct move, the move that we are looking for in this position, bit of a sneaky. You guys are going to love it. You guys are going to absolutely love this one. We noticed, we highlighted the fact that there's this pin on the knight, but this is an outstanding move. Definitely worthy of an exclamation mark. Remember, exclamation mark, guys, just whilst we're here. Check this out. This gives you a nice description of all the annotations that are possible on a chessboard. So if you guys read chess books, which I know you all do, no, just kidding, but it wouldn't do you any harm to read a few chess books, guys. Definitely gonna make you better chess players. But you'll see these annotations in the chess book. So you'll see they'll play a move and they'll put a question mark. They'll play a move and they'll put a question mark, exclamation mark. And then generally in the front of the book, they will sort of give you a description of what these annotations mean. So plus, most of them is pretty easy once you get question mark, obviously bad, exclamation mark, good. If we're just going to summarize it like that, and you can check all of these out. White's better, plus minus, black's better is minus plus. Worth having a look. Anyway, so now I take C6 exclamation mark. Let's take a look what's just happened here. So we've opened this diagonal, looks like a scare card. Probably the first and most important move that needs to be addressed is what happens if black takes your queen, because it's definitely a scare card. There goes the queen, bye-bye. Of course, it looks like we've got this little check with a piece. That's good news. King is pretty much stuck. There we go. Someone is on the ball. And then knight f7, mate. Woo! That's lovely stuff. Doesn't happen every day that you see this kind of a mate occurring. That's what makes this position so special. So, hold on a sec here. So, before we jump right into this, so it's clear that queen takes c3 is failing quite badly or miserably. So, knight takes e7. Queen takes c6, which would be the next move that I'd look at. And then you realize that this diagonal opens up and white plays queen g7 rather, and mates black. No good there. Alternatives now, it's looking pretty slim because if b takes c6 or knight takes c6, white will just take the queen. And this is pretty much game over, guys. I don't think there's any way to prevent the avalanche of mate threats that are coming. In fact, this one just feels like it's unstoppable. Black could literally put the bishop here, like, please take me, and you're like, no, it's fine. I'll just mate you rather. So that's that. Cool. That was our first one. Pretty nice little mate. Let's move. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. This one definitely a little bit easier than the previous example. And go. Come on, guys. I want to see those answers flying in. Glad to see the Lichess chat room is in order. So white's got a nice advantage here. It looks pretty big. Queen e7. Let's see a little bit more variation detail, please, Gabriel. So I love the answers, but again, just provide me with a few more moves. So say Queen e7, then the king's going to h8, then I'm doing some magic, you know? Anything. Just give me some bit more detail about what's your plan. Because it's all about plans. I think that's why we think, that's why we try to find the best move. We're trying to find a solid plan that's going to help us to win this game. And we know that there's a tactic here. That's what makes these exercises fun. You know, we know that there's something here. This could be a game. I mean, that's also what you guys need to think about is this could be a position in a game. This is you against your toughest opponent. You are having the game of your life, and now there's a winning move on the board. And a lot of us might just continue with our plan. We're like, oh, wow, the rook's attacking my pawn, you know, and without really going into too much detail, you just play g3 and defend the pawn. But that's why we need to look at all possible checks, all possible takes, and see if we can maybe uncover a nice move. Thank you, Jason. Very happy to see that. Good analysis as well. I like that. Correct notation too. Nice, boys. So just to touch on Queen e7, King h8, Queen e5. I'm seeing checks. I'm seeing a lot of checks, but I'm not seeing, say, any constructive plan. So it will be check. It will be here. It will be check. And the king will probably have to, of course, move to one of these two squares. Then it will be a fly to win, hey? A fly. Not entirely sure what that means. I'm not up to scratch with my my lingo these days, guys. I'll have to find out what that means at some stage. Anyway, Gabriel comes up with Queen f8. Queen f8 is a good move. So thanks for that one, Jason. Nice idea. Checks are always good. You got to investigate them, but the checks need to lead to somewhere. So if we check so that we're trying to get our queen into a better position, or because we're going to win something later on, that makes sense. Queen f8. We are grabbing a rook. This is the main point. I'll try to do this in our heads. Let's have a quick look. So if black goes queen takes queen, which is of course the main move that you need to investigate, white has this lovely little c8 with check. Oh yes, the discovered check makes another appearance. And now that's just looks like it's going downhill for black after that. Because what happens is, yes, I lose my queen. It's actually rook for queen, so I pick up a rook. And then what happens is I just renew the queen. Ta-da! Queen is back in town, and it's check. Only sort of decent move that black can play is king g8. He needs to hold the queen. And then look, I normally tell you guys to go for simple chess. Simple chess is good chess, and there's nothing simpler than just exchanging the queens here. Your rook up, be a very easy win for white. Queen takes queen, king takes. Maybe I'll just run the king in, because I actually want to just keep the king tied down on the 7th rank. You just sit around stuck at the back. So I might just bring my king in, pick off this pawn, and then maybe just promote. That'll be very easy. Yeah, just push another pawn. Thank you, Gabriel. That'll do the job. I think this is more efficient, though. When the queens are involved and the king is so vulnerable, you really have to be like, maybe I can find something. One of the things that makes me go for this is the fact that I see black doesn't have any checks. So this check isn't available, just mainly due to this pawn. So I think I can just go queen takes g6. And now it looks like I'm threatening too much. It's just too much. This is the primary threat here. We're looking at queen h7 with mate. And now black's, it looks like it's just too much to overcome here. This doesn't seem to be, unless you go queen g8, but then I go queen h6, and that'll be the game. So queen here and queen takes. That leads to mate. Interesting stuff. But yeah, so queen f8 was the move. Thank you, guys. Thank you for the answers. Let's move. Okie dokie, a little bit more of a sophisticated position we've got here. Looks like white's got a solid advantage in this position, mainly because of the development. If you look at black's development here, not a great deal happening on the queen side for the black pieces, which is why they're going to be in trouble in this game. So there's two really strong ideas that white's working with in this position. I'll give you a clue. You've got to try and gear towards trapping this queen. So the first move that I look at is rook a4. But then I see queen c5, and that feels like I just helped the black pieces, which I don't really like. Of course, we don't really want to help our opponent. Whenever you see a move like that, you're like, nah, I'm just helping them out way too much here. So I don't like that. But we need to now use this development advantage. Yes, we've got all our pieces in the game. That's great. You know, we are ready to strike, but we need to now strike. So, I mean, where do we strike? That's really the question. If you were not sure of where to strike, you could play a move like getting the queen into the game. I would like this move, but bishop f5 seems a bit of a nasty one. So I might have to just go queen d2 and then double the rooks on the e-file. That would be productive. That would be progressive. I'd be improving my pieces. I'd be bringing more soldiers into the battle. I like it. So bishop e7, that's looking good. That's looking good. Again, Gabriel, just give us a bit of follow-up information. It looks like black's wasted a lot of moves on this queen. Generally, what ends up happening when you bring your queen out too early is they chase your queen, then you end up wasting a lot of moves, dancing your queen about. And during that time, your opponent is continuously bringing more pieces in and improving their position at the same time, which is obviously no good for them. Yeah. So bishop e7 is a nice move. You guys might tie that in with something that I mentioned earlier. We'll see about that in just a moment's time. So bishop e7, I think it's safe to say that black will play rook e8. There we go. There we go. And then rook a4 straight after. Yeah, that's pretty good. I think that's going to trap a queen. I think that's going to trap a queen, which is never a bad thing. I think we can always be happy. I saw some other idea, which I think might actually be stronger. Well, I think the correct solution is that. So bishop e7, of course, we gain a tempo. We're attacking the opposition rook. They're going to have to do something with this. They can't just leave that rook there. That's a problem for them. So they logically rook e8 the move. Knowing that I'm going to lose my queen, I might try something else here as black. I don't know what though. If this is the threat, and what does black do? Maybe like bishop d7, I guess. Of course, he's going to lose an exchange. He's losing rook for bishop, which isn't fantastic. But of course, it's better than the alternative. And that's really all that we're trying to do. We're trying to find the best move because the alternative is painful. Rook e8, we've addressed rook a4. And it looks like the queen is run out of available squares. I see, like I normally say, if you're going to lose material, try and get the most you can for it. And a rook and a piece isn't too bad, actually. So I think that's pretty okay. Black could probably be happy with that. And it's for that reason that I was actually thinking that maybe bishop b4 was a stronger move. And I'm threatening, and again, making use of the discovered attack. So now the major threat, or the primary threat, the main threat, if we can call it that, is rook takes e8 mate. So it's not just about the queen. And if rook takes, then bishop takes. Now they can't really take back because then I take the rook. So they would probably move the rook back. Rooks, just like queens, they don't really belong in the middle of the board. It's too easy for your opponent to target them and attack them. So probably just heading back is a safe bet, which will allow white to exchange. When you're taking with the pawns, take towards the center. Here's our center. You take towards, towards. Interesting. I was just chatting about that. So pawn takes or a takes b6. All right. And then from here, quite honestly, it should be a pretty easy win for white. Queen d2, rook e1. Try and get some attack on the open file. Remember, what is an open file? It's a file that with no pawns on it. So there are no pawns, yours or your opponent's, which is where the rooks want to be. Remember, the rooks like the bishop, they like space. Let's move. White to play. Let's rock and roll. Bishop b5. I don't like it. I don't like bishop b5. Sorry. Thank you for the answer. But I don't know. It just doesn't seem like there's a great future along this. I guess it does solve this problem, which is it's a small issue. Maybe not. I want you guys to have a look at this. Definitely something to do with that. So any and all moves with the knight should be very closely considered. What you do have to be aware of, though, is that when I move the knight, queen takes e3 is a very real possibility. It does look juicy, doesn't it? So if you're going to play a move like knight e6 or knight f5, yeah, that's pretty good. I like that idea, Gabriel. Thank you. Thank you. What about the rest of you guys? You're going to let Gabriel answer all of the exercises? I don't think so. What do you guys think of knight e6 or knight f5 for that matter? I kind of like knight f5. You'll win the rook after knight e6, knight c7. He isn't wrong. So what happens is you end up trading bishop. I'm a little weary of this one, I'll be honest. So queen e3, knight c7, king d8, pretty much forced knight a8. So what happened is we've traded this bishop on e3 for the rook on a8. Okay. Ooh. Bishop for rook, cool, interesting trade. Of course, it's in white's favor, and it's quite all right. White must be better here, no doubt. King's a little bit uncomfortable in the middle, but I imagine after queen d3 and just trying to remove this opponent's queen, I will find a way to castle. And once I do that, it looks like I will be very comfortable. I'm going to show you an improvement on knight e6. Knight e6 is a correct move. And I think maybe queen b2 is the best move for black. But then, like we've already touched on, I mean, there's these options. I can also take this. Taking g7, by the way, isn't so good because king f8, and the knight doesn't have anywhere to run, unfortunately. It's very cool if you can get something like this. Well, if you can get knight g7 and then bishop h6. But unfortunately, this pawn on f4 is in the way. So check this move out. Queen takes e3, grabs the bishop, and now this is actually a stunner from white. Knight d5, which hits the queen. Okay, so you're like, all right, fine. He wants to take my queen. I need to move the queen. Well, I mean, that almost goes without saying. So where are the available squares? Also not too many of those. So maybe queen e4 and then mate. You also don't see the king getting mated with the two knights too often either. So that is actually the correct solution. A little bit tricky with the two knights in there, but a nice one to remember. And again, guys, all discovered attacks, discovered checks, they need to be thoroughly investigated. Really, really have a good look. This could be an opportunity. It almost always is an opportunity. It's very seldom that you find there's a discovered check and it leads to nothing. You know, there's always going to be some fireworks. And it's very important that you do the necessary calculations. Of course, I'm always telling you guys to take your time, play slowly. Nobody can do these calculations instantly. So it takes a bit of time. But of course, the more that you practice and do these calculations, the better you'll get at doing them. Black can defend that. I'm not sure what you're talking about, Gabriel. You're gonna have to back that up with some analysis. I'm assuming this position. Knight f6 here. There's a lot of pieces hanging. You're right. I mean, it's better than getting mated. I won't argue with that. Definitely better than getting mated, and it probably is. I don't know if it's the best move. There's probably, maybe there's a better move than this. But if I were white here, I'd first take the bishop with check, king f8, then I'd take the queen, then they'd probably take my knight, I'd take their knight. White's just the queen up. But as you correctly mentioned, it is better than getting mated. What I was just saying is that this idea of the two knights is a nice idea, and it's a slight improvement on just grabbing the rook here. But yeah, he can prevent the mate. In most cases, the mate can be prevented, but generally they have to then take a very heavy material loss, like what happened in this situation. So you can prevent the mate, but you lose basically, you know, all your material, and you're just dead in the water. All right, so I saw this position, and it reminds me of the old Legals mate, so that's why I touched on Legals. We'll see how this actually can unfold in actual gameplay. As you can see, it's basically the starting position here. White to play and win. There's a nice move here for white. I think most people would just probably play h3. h3 is a good move. d3 is a good move. Castles is a good move. These are all good moves. They are not the best move. White's got a nice little calculation, which he can use. So Gabriel says knight e5. It looks a bit dangerous, but knight e5 is an interesting one to investigate. Well, Gabriel, I'm loving the participation. I'm loving the enthusiasm. That's why you've become such a good player in the last year or so, because you get involved. You do, and you do practice. Practice makes perfect. So I'm loving the, like I said, the enthusiasm, and you're getting involved like that. But what you do need to remember is that when you're going to sacrifice material, especially big material, or in fact, any material, actually, I don't like sacrificing anything unless I'm absolutely certain that I'm going to win the game. So you need to be sure that your sacrifice is going to work. So knight e5, bishop d1. So of course you just drop a queen. So straight, there goes the queen. If your attack wins, you you celebrate a fantastic move and you're like, wow, that was just brilliant. I loved it. Or if it doesn't work, then you fall flat and you end up just losing what probably would be a bit of an embarrassing game. So when it comes to these sacrifices, especially queen sacrifices, you need to be certain. Knight e5 is correct. He's got good instincts, guys, but it's because he does his practice, he does his puzzles, he plays his games. Knight e5. Now, like in the previous example, black's best move is just to say, okay. Black's best move is just to say, okay, I lost a pawn. So it's a lot of calculation for just one pawn. That's all that white wins. What happens is he takes a pawn, he loses a knight, and white takes the bishop. So it's bishop for knight, equal point trade, and I just picked up this pawn. And then the d pawn just comes and takes. So white won a pawn. That's it. Knight f6. Hits the queen, probably queen f3, and the show goes on. I might even be tempted to go queen d1, which is interesting as well. Queen g3, also acceptable. Let's go back here. So knight e5. If bishop d1, of course, we're like, what? This is a queen. This needs to be investigated. Bishop f7, king e7. Ding, ding, ding. And this is Legal's Mate, a very famous position. That I think this game occurred somewhere in the early 1900s. I'll have to get that date for you guys. But yeah, sometime in the early 1900s, over 100 years ago, this game, we first saw this idea on the chessboard. So like I said, it's the one that you can, and I will sort of quickly, I see we're running out of time, I'll show you how this occurs in a game. So a lot of us do play e4, e5, knight f3. Now, most of the time, knight c6 is a more modern way to go about things. You're developing a piece and defending the pawn at the same time. Makes more sense, to be honest. Bishop c4, maybe slightly more aggressive than knight c3, which generally leads to your 4 knights positions. So let's say bishop g4. Quite natural to grab this pin, and we all know I always encourage this pin. It's very good, but of course with a little bit of other pieces being developed as well. Then in this position, white plays knight c3, standard developing move, good stuff. No one will not be impressed by that move. Pretty standard stuff. And then h6, a little bit sloppy. Any other move just about works out. Knight c6 will allow the knight to defend the e5 pawn. Knight f6 will defend the bishop on g4. Bishop e7 will actually cover things. Yeah, so I think bishop e7 is the move I like, because I don't really, actually it's fine. You can't go knight g5. So just be careful when you go knight f6 too early, that you are taking knight g5 into consideration. But now h6, if an h6 happens, then we're back into the same position with knight takes e5. Then bishop d1, bishop f7, king e7, knight d5. Woo-hoo. And that's how you get mated in 7 moves. Ouch. All right, guys, that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed the lesson.